Rachel, over 400 bills introduced across the country, 28 of them signed into law, and Exhibit A is the one in Georgia. And as we learned today, the devil is in the details. It's, yes, about the water that will be denied voters in line, nonpartisan volunteers. As we learned yesterday, Stacey Abrams and I did an event in Cobb County, and voters had waited for 7 hours, for 5 hours. But what we also learned today, and I want to thank incredible committee members, Senator Padilla, Senator Merkley, Senator Ossoff, as well as Senator Warnock, the other senator from Georgia who testified today. This is what we learned. The runoff period, 28 days, used to be 9 weeks when Ossoff and Warnock won, reduced to 28 days. And guess what, Rachel? You can register to vote 29 days. So no new voter can register, and you cannot vote on weekends in the runoff, but you can in the general. Everything is done to sow confusion. Limited hours for the ballot drop boxes, less ballot drop boxes, limited restrictions when it comes to mail-in balloting. It's one thing after another. And you brought up one of the most egregious things, and Senator Warnock has a bill to fix it, that basically takes the power that was instilled in the local officials and their local election boards, and then basically says, hey, state election board, we're going to throw off 2/3 of your members. We're going to replace them with our own, says the Republican legislature. And then if we find a few technical violations, we're going to get rid of your local election officials. This is a pure smackdown of voting rights, and it's why we went there, and it's why the solution is the For the People Act. Basic national voting rights.
The For the People Act obviously is the subject of all sorts of activism and strategizing and work and speechifying. And we're seeing sort of pressure in all the different ways that it comes, including these increasingly dramatic direct action events, people engaging in peaceful civil disobedience, blocking traffic to try to, including today in Washington, dozens of women arrested, trying to do anything they can to move people's conscience to pass this thing. Is there any movement where it counts inside the U.S. Senate?
There's many paths. First of all, I would abolish the filibuster, and I know some of my colleagues aren't yet in the same place. There is a possibility of carving out an exception for voting rights, such a key constitutional value. As Reverend Warnock said at Ebenezer Church on Sunday, every vote is a prayer. You could also, and Senator Manchin has indicated a willingness to look at a standing filibuster where we force our colleagues to stand there day after day after day. That is ultimately how civil rights legislation passed. There is a John Lewis Act, and the House is starting hearings right away this fall to get the data we need to put forward an expansion of the Voting Rights Act after the Supreme Court shot it down in the Shelby decision, major pieces of it. You could also add to that bill. Then we have right in front of us the 2 infrastructure packages. I'm not talking about the bipartisan one. I'm glad that's continuing to proceed. But this is the one that will include housing and childcare. You can include election infrastructure, Rachel, and you can tie incentives for voting with that package. And then finally, we have the Justice Department, with Benita Gupta there, Kristen Clark. This isn't Bill Barr's Justice Department anymore. And there is a big focus on going after these egregious discriminatory laws.
The type of election infrastructure you were just describing there that could potentially be put in the infrastructure bill that, again, can pass through reconciliation, can pass with 50 Democratic votes, even if Republicans decide not to support it. Is there agreement among Democrats about including election infrastructure, as you describe it, in that bill?
I don't think you're going to see opposition. Remember, Senator Manchin and I have been working in the product, and it's not finished yet, but we had a lot of provisions in there for basic federal voting rights. This is the one that Stacey Abrams, Barack Obama were supportive of, and it didn't have everything in For the People, but it had some really good provisions. So if you're for that, you've got to be for election infrastructure, and you could tie some incentives to that election infrastructure. So I'm not as concerned about that as I am about the the limitations we have with reconciliation, as I am about our colleagues. I think they're going to be good on it. And so that's what we are working through right now. And let me make clear, it is no substitution for basic federal voting rights and for the For the People Act, or for that matter, the John Lewis bill.